Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from. You're right on time for yet another exciting episode of Kilimo na Biashara. And today we are in Lari, Kiambu County, and as we are shooting this show today, it's quite freezing right here. It's very cold, the temperatures are low, and that's why we are here. We want to explore some of the farming methods that can really thrive in this region. Today, we focus on vermiculture. Basically, it's growing or cultivation or rearing of worms. So let's get to know what are the benefits, why worms in the first place. So shall we join our farmer right next to this particular road? Okay, join me, let's go. George.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi. Karibu
Nice
sana.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Nikikuja sikufikiria wewe ni kijana barubaru hivi.
Mi bado ni kijana doing this kind of farming.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what inspired comfort worms and insects? Why the name?
The reason as to why tuliweka comfort worms, it's just to try and show how the worms try to keep the farmer a bit more comfortable in their way of farming. So that is why comfort worms and insects.
Both kimfuko na...
Both kimfuko na pia the way they produce their food ikuwe more safe.
Tell us now about this business, vermiculture. How did you begin? What is it about?
We are dealing with two things, vermiculture and vermicomposting. And this kind of business is all about using worms to break down any organic waste, turning that into fertilizer. And in that, organic fertilizer, yenye wakulima wanatumia kupanda, kutop dress, and also trying to help in terms of waste management. Because tunatumia a lot of waste to feed these worms, wana break down, ndio wanatupea fertilizer. And specifically we use one type of worm, yenye tunaita red worms ama red ryegrass. Yeah.
So there are different varieties of worms?
Yeah, around the world there are about 8,000 types. In Kenya we use about 2 types, red worms and African night crawlers. But now here we have majored in red worms because of a number of things.
And what are those number of things?
Red worms are heavy feeders. And in that, so they'll break down a huge amount of waste within a short period of time. The other thing is about adaptability. So different worms adapt to different conditions. But now for the red worms, they adapt in a wide range of conditions. That is temperatures, whatever you feed them. So you find that red worms are easy to keep and maintain. Also, once you keep them in the right conditions, red worms will stay there and they will reproduce. And like the African night crawlers, which move so fast, whenever it gets to be dark, just like the name, they start crawling out.
You've mentioned a very important aspect, that they are heavy feeders.
Yeah.
Now, what are the steps involved when it comes to rearing of these worms?
So the very first step is structuring. And we have different structures depending on different conditions. Now right here, we are in the highlands and we have to look at a number of things, temperatures, predators, and those try to help us know which conditions or which structures that you are going to use. Now in our case, we use these kind of structures. We call them the beds, which are raised from the ground so that we can be able to prevent predators like safari ants from getting in the beds and feeding on our worms.
No wonder you've put that plate, sort of a plate down there.
That is why we have a plate there that we keep on putting wire just to try and make sure that they don't get inside. So
what are some of the components involved when you're doing this type?
You have to select what are we going to compost, because also we have a wide variety of items that we can break down, ranging from animal droppings, apart from chicken. So you can use cow, sheep, goat, pig manure. Then from there we have plant remains from the farm. That is either green waste or dry waste. Then now finally you know, where am I going to get the worms? So that you can introduce them there and they start reproducing.
And that's a very important question. Where do you get the worms?
You get them from an established farm or institution. Like now, for us, we sell. K24, they do sell. So these are some of the places one may be able to get the worms from.
With all this knowledge and this science involved in vermiculture, I would love to know your journey. How did it begin? Where did you start?
I started this back in 2015. That was right after high school. And the reason as to why I was starting this venture, I had a challenge with feeding my chicken. So I was looking for alternative ways of feeding my chicken at a lower cost, maybe something I can produce at the farm and feed my chicken. From there I prepared my structures and bought a few worms, 10 kgs of worms. And that is now where I started. But now it didn't work as I expected.
And then what happened?
The rate of reproduction of the worms is a bit low. So I can't really produce worms on a daily basis to feed my 100 chicken. It will require a very big space and now cost for that matter. So, but I didn't throw away my worms. So I kept on trying to research more, maybe what are other people around the world doing with the worms. And that is how I realized that the worms have two very important products. One is the vermicompost that we use as an organic fertilizer, and two, it's a liquid that we can get from the worms that we call vermiliquid. It's an organic foliar fertilizer.
Well, tell us more about the vermiliquid. You said vermiliquid?
The liquid is extracted during the composting process, but now it depends on what you feed the worms. Because now, like in my case at the moment, I don't produce the liquid because of a number of reasons. But when I was starting, I used to produce that liquid because I used to feed a lot of fruit waste, vegetable waste. So during the breakdown process, there used to be that excess liquid from the whole system. So now that is what we call the vermiliquid.
What are the challenges? Because I know for different farmers, they have different challenges.
The inorganic fertilizers, but over time, I have found that now the demand has really gone up. We find that most of what we produce, like 80% of it, we sell it within a short period of time.
I know capital can really be one of the hindrances in starting a business, but when you look at this, is it capital intensive? Is it difficult to start?
Not really, because now you find that the kind of structures I have tried to put in place, they are not so expensive. Because we try to look at what can I be able to come up with a low cost, but also being productive. So I tried to work so well in terms of coming up with something that is not too expensive. And over time I have managed to do that, and also trying to save on space. Because now the space I use is my father's land. And I can't really use a very big space because he is also farming.
I really like the way you've maximized on space here. All these structures in a small area, and you also have other products right there.
How we work in this farm, we try to work in a way that one thing depends on the other. Now we like produce Azora. Azora uses whatever we are producing here. We have some animals in the farm which give us the waste which we use here.
And speaking about youth, for you it was kind of a difficult start, but how is the situation as of now? Would you advocate even for other youth to be on board?
So I think youth really need to get into this and look more into agribusiness. Because I always say that there are so many opportunities in agriculture. Because over time, when we were growing up, we just thought farming is waking up in the morning, taking a djembe, going in the shamba from morning to evening. But now things have really changed. There are different spaces that youth can be able to fit in. Other than just production, we find that there is the area of validation, there is the area of marketing, there is an area where we can say you can sit somewhere and be developing business ideas related to agriculture. So there are those different spaces that really youth need to exploit, because without this, the agriculture sector will really go down. Yeah.
Wow, and that's a good point to take us for a short commercial break as we go to the other side, right?
Sure,
okay,
sure.
Let's go. Wow, and that is just the beginning of learning more about vermiculture, that is rearing of worms. So we are taking a short commercial break, but when we come back, we are now going to show you the byproducts, what is it used for, and perhaps you might consider this as your next business venture. So don't you go too far, we'll be right back.